Hello everybody, my name is Jake Kornack and I'm a second degree black belt. I've been here at TKC for many years now, maybe 7 or 8 or so. And I just backpacked Europe for the past 2 months or so. But the journey of Europe really isn't about Europe. It starts a lot earlier than that, and the roots are here. A few years back when I was testing for black belt, Mr. Farbors had us all write down a goal list. And I had never really written down my goals before. I think all of us have goals and we have something we're aspiring to, but we never really solidify it on paper. And that was the first opportunity I really had to write down everything I really wanted to do, both in the short and long term. So I wrote down a few years ago that I wanted to go to Europe. And I told all my buddies that I wanted to go to Europe too. And they're like, yeah, let's all go to Europe. And we all got really excited, and this was in 8th grade, 9th grade. And then, just out of luck, Miss Linda asked me if I wanted to be an instructor for her summer camp that she was throwing. Wow. So this was my first chance to kind of make money and have a job here at TKC. And so I made the financially, and I bought my first car based on this money, and then I decided that I would sell this car about a few months ago because I wanted to follow through on that goal that I had made back in 8th grade with my friends to backpack Europe. But none of them, unfortunately, had gone that 4 years with me. Things had come up. But so through the transitive property, pretty much, with selling the car that I made the money from karate, financially, I was able to do it because of my roots here. And money is just skimming the surface. There's so much more to the story than that, and I just thought I would mention that first. Yeah, so I said on Facebook and to the TKC community, hey, I'm backpacking Europe. And the TKC family really reached out to me in an unexpected way. I hadn't been here for almost a year at that point, a year and a half. And I got probably 15 messages in my inbox saying, hey, just from people, some here today, saying, hey, I hear you're in Europe. I have this family member here that would love to feed you and stay with you. Give them your house and for a few days and give me their couch, and overwhelming support. It was crazy. So it was something that I was really unsure about and scared about because this was something that I was going to be doing by myself. I was second guessing myself every day up to the plane ride. And sure enough, I had that support team. Even just different degrees of relationship. Kirstine had a lot of family in Switzerland, and I stayed with them, and they really looked after me like their own. And it's really that's the heart of TKC. I think it's the family you build here, and that's everlasting. And it became really apparent when I was in need in Europe. I had those people there, so I was never really alone. It made the unfamiliar familiar. So I backpacked Europe for a month and a half or so. I started actually with Israel, and then I flew on over to London, and I did London and Paris to the Netherlands, and then to Berlin and Munich and Switzerland, and yes.
Can you talk about your budget?
Yeah, sure. So, sold my car for $1,900, and that left me a little less than $40 a day, and that's including the hostel. So, the hostel costs about, on average, $30 a day. Some hostels cost $40 a day. So that meant some days I would have to, say, I guess I'll be on a bench tonight, and so I can sleep in a hostel when I, hit Rome or when I hit Venice.
What's a hostel?
A hostel is a massive building where mostly youth go, and anywhere from 16 years old to 30 years old, and it's a big room, anywhere from 5 to 40 beds. So one night I didn't have the money to get into a hostel. I'd spent my $40 on the hostel the night before. So yeah,
I was just going to ask, are they privately run, government supported?
They're all privately run. Yeah, some by families. So in Berlin, I was kind of scared, and I ran out of money, and I snuck into a hostel, a 40-bed hostel, and
You didn't learn that from TKC though.
no. I felt very scandalous when I was doing it. I snuck through the door, and I picked a bed. Like there are a lot of beds empty. I picked one bed that was empty, and like clearly no one had been in the bed yet, and I kind of fell half asleep, worrying. And at 5 a.m., this drunk woman came up to my bed, and it was her bed. So she got security, and I had about 2 minutes to get all my stuff together, and the security guy comes down with the copies of the passports, and he starts comparing it to the beds. I'm kind of like faking being asleep, and then I grabbed my stuff, and luckily there was like a push fire window, so I jumped out of that, and I ran to the train station and got out of Berlin. So,
Are you sure you're not working for the CIA?
yeah, no, yeah.
So if you spent $40 a day just on a hostel, what did you eat?
So I ended up on average living on less than $40 a day because and really the generosity of people rang through. On days that I thought I would be homeless, I'd be getting ready to. I had found a nice bench, and I'm in Venice, and Venice is full of mosquitoes in Italy, and I'm kind of wary, and I'm sitting down, and all of a sudden, this guy asked me what I'm about to do, and I start explaining my situation, and it just happens, and this luck happened throughout the entire journey, that the owner of the biggest hostel in Venice was walking by, and he's like, I have an extra room for you. You can stay in this extra room in this hostel. So I ended up sleeping free that night in this really nice room in Venice. And this luck happened all the time. I'd run into people, and especially Kirstein's family, Ron's in-laws, like made sure I was fed. And if not, I was living on mostly gingerbread, actually. Gingerbread is the cheapest thing in a lot of these countries. So gingerbread and cheeses. And, but going back to TKC, yeah. Huh.
Were there any language barrier issues when you were traveling?
Yes. The best thing, and this is rooted in TKC again. Do you guys know the 3 T's? The 3 ways of touching somebody. It's you introduce yourself by, appropriate touch. You repeat the name back to them. And you, 3 T's. To make eye contact. Yes, I did that one too. Yeah, so I would do that to a majority of people, and it didn't really matter what language they were speaking. They normally tried to help me, and even if they didn't, there were universal signals that I used. Like, I was always looking for the next train that I needed to catch. I probably was aboard like 20 trains on my journey, and like universal symbol for train, if you're wondering, choo-choo. That's it. You're good. And really, the hardest part about the journey is keeping track of every single train, and when you need to board, there are a lot of transfers in the middle of the night, and you need to make sure. Sometimes they split trains up, so if you sleep through your stop, you're automatically going in the opposite direction. And the 4 quadrants of time management, keeping things important but not urgent, really rang true at this point. I was really sure about listing every train stop I had and setting alarms, and I missed one train stop where they, during my entire journey, where they split the cars up, but the cars that I was going to, like Munich at the time, and they were supposed to be splitting the cars up to going someplace to the Netherlands, but they ended up changing the route along the way to my final destination. So it was crazy. Yeah, the luck. Yeah, and yeah.
No, I was just going to ask, did you have any of your relatives there, the family there?
I didn't have anyone, no. Yeah, I was, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about convincing mom and dad that this was an okay thing to do?
My mom, as soon as she heard that I was giving a speech, she immediately had an opinion on what she wanted me to say, because like every day she was very very scared, and like every time I would talk to her on the phone, I'd hang up and she'd be crying saying I love you. But the only reason I was allowed to go on this trip, and she kept on repeating this before I left, was she felt like I could handle myself and that I had a new level of awareness from my roots here. And I don't necessarily think that I'm an aggressive person or that aware, but I think it's maybe more instinct now. And I never had to get in a fight abroad, no matter how many times I was on the street. I got aggressive a few times, but then people just completely back up and back away. But yeah, as far, like, I talked to a lot of people before I left, and they're like, wow, you're going to find out so much more about yourself, and you're gonna find yourself. And that was the major thing. And if anything, I know less about who I am. I'm more confused. And the 3 T's was really just such a great foundation for learning. I think a lot of how we identify ourselves in this world is based on how we know we will react to something. So like, if you consider yourself intelligent, you consider yourself intelligent often, I think, because when somebody says something like something, you react a certain way, and you call that intelligence. Or when somebody says something, you react a certain way, and you call that humor. You know? And so you say, oh, when I think about who I am, I'm a funny guy, I'm an intelligent guy. Well, or it could be a more depressing, set of traits. But the more, like, you kind of expect how people might react to you, and that's your surroundings kind of tell you who you are, the people you hang around with, where you are. And every time I did those 3 T's to somebody, like, the cultural barrier was there, and they responded in the most bizarre ways. And I don't have that many examples. A lot of it was just the small nuances, and would completely throw me off. And like, I'd be saying something or telling them a story, and they'd react in a completely, like, when you tell a story to someone, at least I kind of are expecting people, like, during the conversation to be matching you, like, oh, this is the funny part of the story, or this is, like, someone's going to agree with me here. And it's not like that at all. So it kind of really, like, shapes who you are and who you think you are. And it was confusing at times, and, like, it wasn't all dandy, my travels. There were points when I think I hit, like, very low points, and I was depressed. But, like, even those points, I grew from. And it kind of culminated the entire event. I was in Ben Gurion Airport. I had to fly back to Israel for my flight back to New York and eventually LA. And in a large airport, and I have like 35 hours left in this airport. So by hour 20, I was occupying myself, and you go through a lot of thoughts because you're completely alone for that time. People are, very busy in the airport. That you can't really stop by for that much conversation. So I started doing all my basic forms and kicking combinations in the middle of this airport, and like, it had completely, like, this 35 hours was a time for me to really reflect on my journey and think about it a lot. And I wanted to end it with that bit of TKC, the physical part. Because I've been using the mental part the entire time, the 3 T's, time management, accepting the generosity of my TKC family. And one other thing, before I end, every single night, it was a pain. I was waking up every day at 9 a.m. and walking probably 10 to 15 miles a day and falling asleep at 1 a.m., getting back to my hostel. And the first thing I wanted to do when I got back to this hostel was go to sleep. But I forced myself every single night to journal. And I cannot even tell you the power of journaling. There was something that was life-changing for, like, I thought I would never forget it. And it had impacted the deepest part of my being. And then a week later, I looked back in my journal, and I had forgotten it. Like, sure, maybe that experience was still with me, but I had forgotten the specifics, and I'm so glad. Every single day, when I wanted to go to sleep, I forced myself. And it was the most painstaking, one of the most difficult parts of my journey. Just the inner battle, because the last thing you want to do after a day's experience is sit down and write out all the obvious things that happened in your day. You know? Yes.
Jake, I remember when I took SWAT, you took it with me, we were in the same class, and I said, Jake, what are you doing here? You're an instructor, surely you must have taken this. And you said, well, this is my third time taking SWAT. And I said, why? And you said, because there might be some new stuff that I don't have. And for you to use so much of those techniques and that curriculum abroad, I know I use it in my job all the time. And I think everybody who gets a chance to take the SWAT, at least get the
Oh, yeah.
get the binder or something. It's really,
Yeah,
really good information.
I agree. And it was just having to constantly, Mr. Farber said something really interesting at one of the pre-tests a few years ago. He said, you do not have integrity. Integrity is a moment-by-moment choice. And when you're by yourself in a country and you don't know anybody, you can be whoever you want to be. You can be the criminal, you can be the reserved person, you can be the most outgoing person. You decide at that point. You don't have that reputation. Someone knows you. Like, people don't know you as intelligent or as this kind of person. You have to build that from the start. And you have to make those conscious choices. They're not automatic to be honest, to try to be someone of integrity. And it's not, it wasn't any instinct for me. It was constant reminding of what I had to do and the person I had to be.
Except
But,
when you crash into the hospital.
Huh?
Except when you crash into the hospital.
Yeah, I needed a place to sleep, and
That's surviving.
they were successful. If it was a family-owned hospital. But yeah, that's it.